Hey guys, my name is Melissa Duncan, and this week the author I picked was Jacqueline Woodson. Jacqueline Woodson is an African American lesbian author. She resides in Brooklyn with her partner and their two children, but she grew up in small town Ohio. She started out writing stories as a child. She absolutely loved writing. She found her happy place there, and then she parlayed that into storytelling. And while after she graduated in college, she was working and someone bought her manuscript, and it really took off for her from there. She wanted to write about communities that we may not particularly think of as white people. I can really check my privilege there because there are some things that I can never write about. And I want to read you a quote directly from her webpage. I want to write about communities that were familiar to me and people that were familiar to me. I wanted to write about communities of color. I wanted to write about girls. I wanted to write about friendship and all of those things that I feel were missing in a lot of the books that I read as a child. She found the hole and she wanted to fill it. And the more authors we get, the more authors that are published, like the STEM or the TED Talk, the TED Talk that we listened to a few weeks ago, less than 10% of books are written about African American people. That's ghastly for me as an educator, especially if I were to be in a school where there is a large African American population. That number is startling and quite frankly sad. Jacqueline Woodson is she has published so many books and won so many awards. I have picked out some of the ones, and I think she's a wonderful artist because she can write for every age. I'm going to start out with one of her adult fiction books, Another Brooklyn. This is about the seedy underbelly of Brooklyn. People were promised hopes and dreams, and then they get to Brooklyn, and there are bad people. There's bad people everywhere. Don't always believe the rainbows and unicorns that you're told. And this book really delves into that for African American people. Next up is Brown Girl Dreaming. I know one of my other classmates read this book this week. It's prose, it's a memoir from her heart. Then we go down into the juvenile fiction section. Feathers also won the Newbery Book Award. And for my babies, the easy readers, this is a picture book called Each Kindness. I read this with my son. He is 8 years old. And this is about a little girl who does not make friends with a new girl because she is poor. And she realizes too late that that's the kind of person you really need to be friends with, someone who may not have the same advantages of you. And I think this is important to read to little kids. You can read it from pre-K all the way up to 5th grade because humility and humanity is missing in our school system. And books like this, if they may not take it home and read it, but if you read it to them in your library, they're going to hear it. Now, the book I read for this week was Beneath a Meth Moon. I chose this book even though it has a white character because I needed this book. I have two younger brothers. One is currently incarcerated because of the rage that comes from methamphetamine use, and the other one has been cremated because he passed away last year, 11 months ago, due to methamphetamine use. I needed this book, and I know that sounds silly that I didn't pick a multicultural character, but I did pick an author, and I picked a book that really I could relate to. In this book, a girl named Laurel has to leave her home because of what you assume is Hurricane Katrina. It was written in that time. She leaves her mother and grandmother there and travels with her father and younger brother to her aunt's house, to a place in Jackson. And her mother and her grandmother do pass away. The floodwaters rise, and they are killed. And so she spirals, and then they have to leave her aunt's house and go to somewhere completely new. So she's the brand new girl, doesn't know anyone, but she has a best friend who moves in across the street, and they become fast friends and has her join the cheerleading team. That's where she gets into trouble. The, I guess you could call him point guard, starting center for basketball, T-Boom is not only a user of methamphetamine, or Moon, as it's called in the book, he is also a dealer. He is her dealer, and he gets her hooked. She goes down, she spirals out, she drops out of one rehab, gets put into a second, and finds a friend named Moses while she is panhandling. Moses is her savior. He literally saves her life whenever she smokes too much methamphetamine and gets her to the hospital. This book is wonderful. I think this book, it is marked as a young adult, so it would be high school appropriate. I believe that it would be older middle school appropriate, honestly, because Laurel is in middle school when she starts using methamphetamine. Students around the Appalachian region, they're in middle school when they start experimenting with drugs, and we need to really get ahead of that. I firmly believe if we took students to the morgue and let them see what drugs did. Yes, you see the pictures on the news of people getting arrested, but if you saw the actual result, maybe we could save a few people. And that's why I chose this book this week, is maybe this book in your library could help, but also for self-reading purposes, this is the book I needed for this week. And maybe it would be a student's book also. So please always add Jacqueline Woodson to your library.